Alright, so today's review is going to be of Captain Cold from The Flash, which is a TV show on the CW. They've made a two-part action figure series for that show there, and that is of The Flash and of Captain Cold. I don't know if they've done any other ones since then, but those are the ones that are listed there on the box, so I'm sure they might have like a heat wave or something, I don't know. So, this is actually one of my favorite characters in any of the DC television shows right now. He makes appearances in The Flash and also in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. And I think I like him a lot because, one, he's a very charismatic villain-type character who's not totally villain, so he's kind of dynamic. But also because he's played by one of my favorite actors, Wentworth Miller. So if anybody knows from Prison Break, it's Michael Scofield, and I love that actor. I think he's super cool, and I think he does a really good job with that role as well. So, of course, this action figure I had to pick up. Plus DC. I love DC stuff. So, all right. So, here is a review of the box. It's definitely a nice collector's themed box. A lot different than the Ninja Turtle stuff that we've been doing before. It's a box that you can open and then shut back up if you want to open it for display purposes, and then still be able to package it later on for either moving or storage or reselling value. So that's pretty cool. And also the box itself just looks really neat. It's definitely made for display on its own if you don't want to have to display the character outside the box and get all dusty and stuff. You can see with like the dynamic edging and stuff, the way that the Captain Cold there is printed, and all the characters in this current lineup have this, including from the Arrow series has a line of characters that are boxed the same way, and also DC currently has an Icons series that is boxed the same way as well. That has like Black Adam and characters like that haven't shown up in TV shows yet, but are still DC icons that people might want to pick up. So this is the front of the box. I guess right side there is just transparent too. You can see the side of the character, and also has the Captain Cold logo there. Back just shows the other figures that would be in the set. This one's got the two, and then it has the Flash there at the top. And the side shows a picture of the character who, or the actor I guess, who actually plays him in the show. So there it's Wentworth Miller. The other one would be the guy who plays Flash in the show. I don't really know what his name is. Bottom's just basic. So top, The Flash. So I'm sure the other boxes also have whatever series it's going to be, like Arrow or Icons or whatever. So that's pretty cool. This character though, I just like to open boxes, but and play with figures. But he looks like he was made to be like a display character outside the box as well, because he's got all of these. 4 of his accessories there are switchable hands, so he actually has 3 sets of hands, 6 in total, and the ones that he is equipped with in the box, it's kind of some glare from the packaging here, but the ones in the box are just closed fists, and then he has some just basic slightly open hand there so he can grip his gun. But then his last one is actually a trigger finger for each hand. So what would probably be the most useful pose is if you want his gun to be held in his left or his right hand, you put the corresponding trigger finger in there, and then he holds it in that hand. The other one can just stay open so that you can try to like grip the barrel of the gun to make him look all dynamic, or you can have his closed fist and he can be holding it like straight out to make it look all cool or something. And then he also comes with this, his ice gun, which you cannot have Captain Cold without his ice gun. So alright, so we're going to open it up, and we're going to look at the figure itself, including articulation, paint job, and how well these accessories actually work. As I'm opening this up, I just want to point out the way that this figure is secured in the package. The hands are held into these spaces here by a piece of tape that just goes over both these, and then another piece of tape that goes over these. So it holds them in place so they don't wobble out or fall out while it's in the box. This, the gun is actually just held in by the dips and creases in the packaging. That can be just popped right out. That's kind of blurry. Yeah, just popped right out of there. The actual figure is held by a twist tie that goes around the waist, and also one around each of his ankles. So he's held in pretty securely. His arms are the only things that are allowed to move freely, and even those are held pretty tight in the dips of the packaging. So he's definitely held in that box pretty tight. You shouldn't find one of these guys rattling around in the box on a store shelf. So, alright, so this is the Captain Cold figure outside of the package. He's definitely got very stiff joints when he's right out of the package. I actually had some difficulty working with him to get his legs to move. I couldn't even figure out that his foot had a pivot here for a little bit because I just couldn't get it to move at all, but I guess that's just breaking him in, so normal. So first talking about articulation. So one of the first things that we should notice here, his arms. So right there they attach, there's the rubber jacket. Burp. Yeah, so they've got a double pivot here, so they're able to twist and also pivot out. So that's pretty good. His elbows, though, have a pretty limited range of motion, even though they also twist and also can turn, supposed to be able to turn up to 90 degrees. But you can see that the jacket port here, to make it look consistent, they had to kind of limit that movement. So really the most movement you're going to get out of that elbow is right there, about 45 degrees. And that's really going to limit the poses that he can make, like being able to put his hands across his chest to grab that gun with both hands. That could be difficult. But for basic poses, it's pretty good, so that's alright. His hands also turn, but we would expect that just because they're replaceable, the little peg. And we can take a look at these fists real quick. The way that all these hands attach, you just pull the peg right out of the hands. You just kind of grab it and manhandle it out. And then you're able to just put that peg back in. It's kind of small, kind of fragile. I would be worried about switching them too often because you might break it. And worst thing you could do is break that peg inside that peg hole, and then you're just stuck without a hand, because the peg is going to be in the way of putting another one on there. But it seems alright. I feel like it won't break too often, but what I would get worried is that peg is going to wear down and the hand's just going to come out too easily if you wear that around too much. So probably what I'll do is just choose a set of hands and kind of just stick with it. And speaking of the hands real quick, the fist is basic, pretty cool, but the trigger finger is what I've got on him right now, that it actually like goes right onto that trigger. So they sculpted that pretty perfectly to be able to both hold that gun and also go right onto that trigger. The problem that I have with it is it's great for just posing if you're going to stick this guy on a shelf, but if you're playing with him, he moves around too much. This thing kind of just like lets go and it'll drop it, which right now it's not doing it, but earlier in the video you could see that it kind of just droops in his hand. So maybe if you just set it back a little bit, it's pretty good. So, but yeah, that's what I was talking about, where it kind of just droops down because he doesn't have a firm grip on the actual stock of this thing, but it looks really cool. Back to articulation. So the arm twists like that, up and down, has a slight turn here, and also has a pivot on the wrist like you'd expect. Going down to the legs, the legs also pivot out and forward. So you got a lot of movement there. That's one of the tight joints though, and I think one of the reasons for that is he's got pieces like this, which are they're rubber, so they're able to move out of the way. It's just going to be a little tougher to do so. That piece of rubber is going to intersect with his upper body there, and that's going to kind of cause that to have a little bit of rub issue. So it does move, just not super fluidly, but you can get it into poses if you really work it. He also has a pivot right here, so his thigh is able to move out. His knee is a double hinge, given that a lot of movement range, even though the detail in the pants might have restricted it if it was just a single hinge. So it's a double hinge there that kind of leaves the knee alone when it hinges, so it doesn't have to mess up the front look of the figure. And then his boots. I really like his boots here. This boot, you can kind of see that there's a line, there's a separation between the pants, but this one's good. It's super flush, so that, and it actually pivots here as well. And that is, I wish that both ended up that way. Maybe if I just push it in. No, it doesn't really work. Yeah, you can still kind of see that line there, but this boot is really flush. It's pretty cool. And it also pivots 90 degrees up and down. So his foot itself actually has a lot of mobility as well. He has no pivot or anything, no joint on his waist. So his legs are just basically cemented to his torso there. You can't turn his torso at all. And then his head also does have some articulation. At first I was thinking that this coat would be firmly in his way, but it actually bends back. So you're able to bend that back, and his head is on a ball joint, so it has a full range of motion. So that's pretty cool. And then you just let the jacket back up. But that jacket is pretty stiff. I think out of everything about this figure, the jacket looks alright, but I would say it's a little too stiff, and also it looks kind of weird with that giant poof over his head. Right there. I think that I would have preferred if it was sculpted down. So if his head was exposed and you just had the hood sculpted like it was in the back. That way it wouldn't be so much in the way of the character, and also it makes the character just look clunky, and like realistically the actual hood portion can't turn with his head. If you want to turn his head like that, then your hood is going to end up getting in the way whenever you go to do a pose. So it kind of limits between that and the waist. He really is he's limited on the range of, like, where he's able to point his gun, realistically look at it, and also like the leg position. He's going to have to pretty much aim within like a 45 degree or a 90 degree arc of his front. He can't really like look to the side or anything to do a cool pose, which kind of limits his abilities. It kind of sucks, but still pretty cool. So talking about paint jobs and general aesthetic of the character, though, his pants here are just straight up black, and it looks like the band here is just painted black, where his plastic here is just like, it's black plastic, so it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more like a gray, to give it some contrast. And his boots look like they're a little bit darker too. Also, the sculpting of the pants is probably one of the coolest qualities of this character, because it just looks so darn realistic. It's like he's got those battered looking, like, wrinkled pants all the way down to where they're tucked into his boots, which are also well sculpted. Yeah, so cool looking combat boots going up to those wrinkly pants, and then going up to his shirt here, just normal, wrinkled, normal wrinkles there. Then it's like a lined design there, and then a belt over his waist. And all this coat is rubber, so where it attaches up to here, you can see that the coat is malleable, and that coat is also really well sculpted, except for that hood. So it goes all the way up here with the creases and wrinkles, and then the sides got the pockets, the little buttons there. Pocket there. But then that hood just irritates me, because it's so freaking stiff. Maybe if we just like bend it back eternally, then it'll end up sticking there. I don't know, but it's like, that wouldn't even be bad if it just stuck like that. Maybe I'll just super glue it like that so we can actually look around, like cut some edges. Maybe that would be the solution to this. Although this character retail is going to be about 25 to 30, maybe 20 if you get it in a good spot. So his arms aren't painted, they're just the blue of the plastic. His hands are the black, a separate piece here. His head, though, is really well painted. You can see his hair, even though all this area is going to be under the hood. They did a good job of making that a few different colors. Looks pretty well shaded and stuff. And looks good. And then his ears are well sculpted there. And you can also see that his glasses go all the way back to about where they should be. Maybe a little far, and it also doesn't go all the way around the back of his head. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be an elastic band or if those are just like sunglasses that are supposed to flop over the ears, but yeah, so it looks pretty good. His lenses are a little more blue, I think, than they should be, but it looks good. And he's got the silver there. And then his eyebrows go kind of far. You can see that they go all the way to his hairline there. Goes over and around to his hairline. But otherwise, and you definitely can't tell unless you get super close. His mouth is well painted, and his mouth and nose are really well sculpted. I think they look pretty good. Yeah, so overall he looks pretty cool. He has a little brown mark there. It looks like some residue from his hair. And also right there, it looks like it went a little bit too far, a little bit past his hairline, but that's kind of being nitpicky. I've seen some of these guys, though, that have like blue marks in the hair from where the parka touches. So my character, he seemed to be alright, in alright shape in that regard. And then he has some pieces like this, just the floppy rubber pieces, so you can still move the legs, or it would be kind of like in the arc there, but it still gives it the I don't know, the aesthetic that it needed. It's still there, but it's not in the way of his movement. Now, talking about the gun, his primary accessory, it is super nice and super well painted. Yeah. One thing too is his fingers don't move like very well at all. I guess they're not supposed to, because it's supposed to hold pretty firm. But yeah, his fingers are very taut, and it makes it kind of difficult to get his gun in and out. But like, you shouldn't really be like pulling it in and out all the time anyway. So that was a weird sentence. All right, so here we have the gun, and you can see that it has some blue right there, some blue there and here. And it's got the kind of that copper in those three pieces there. It looks well sculpted, and the paint job is decent. They relied a lot on the like brushed metal look, kind of making it look rugged and silver without making it like a shiny paint. It's still like a matte gray, but they tried to make it get that like metallic look by making it just, it's kind of got like that brushed effect, and it definitely looks good. It's definitely a better accessory than most, and I'm glad they put so much effort into it, considering the character is basically an ice gun. Like Captain Cold wouldn't really be much without his ice gun, so I'm glad that they put effort into making that ice gun worth attaching to such a well done character. So yeah, so altogether I would definitely say that this is a great figure. My biggest complaint would be the hood and his elbow articulation right there. I wish that his elbow could move a little bit better. I wish that this hood wasn't so restrictive, but other than that, the character is super cool. The action figure is super neat. Although I would say I don't think he 100% looks like Wentworth Miller. I think his face is a little too thin and stuff, but he's a passable Captain Cold, so pretty neat. Yeah, but I definitely say that he's worth picking up if you are interested in this Flash line or in that character. I eventually want to meet Wentworth Miller. I feel like this box would be worth getting signed. So I think that'd be a good thing to do. One other thing that I want to do before, just out of my own curiosity, I really don't like that trigger finger doesn't hold the weapon too well. And I don't know what else this hand would be good for. No, it doesn't really. Yeah, this gun is just too wide, and you can tell this one's. No, that hand is too wide open. Yeah, you can tell that this is actually a more firm hold. The trigger finger is a more firm hold. This is just kind of open. I wonder if that's supposed to be like a relaxed position, if you just don't want the fist. But I guess this is the only one that's really designed to hold the gun, and I don't think it does a great job of it. So I guess that might be another complaint. Although if you can get it to hold, it looks really good. It just, I think that if the character moves around at all, it has a risk of just dropping it, or having it slack down like you had seen a little bit earlier. So, all right, well, I would say this was a great figure, great review. So, yeah. Oh, how about you stand here? Good. Okay, so if you guys have any critiques on my review here, anything that I might have missed, or anything that you might want to see talked about in more detail next time, then go ahead and leave that in the comments, and I will be sure to respond accordingly. And also, if you have any tips on any figures that you want me to check out next, either from this series, because I really like DC action figures. I'm not super into Marvel because I'm not as interested in their superhero stuff, but anything from that, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line that we were talking about earlier in the previous videos, go ahead and leave that in there too, because I'm looking into getting some more of those, and I'm hoping to do at least one of these figure reviews a week, so I'll be hopefully doing it pretty consistently. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend, and see you.